what is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
As for Joe Biden, he has not announced his plans for next year yet, and it's unclear how he thinks Trump's indictment could help or hurt his political fortunes. I asked him if he thought the charges were politically motivated on Friday. He said he had no comment. In fact, the first answer of substance that he has given is about potential protests in New York.
Fox's Pete Ducey talking about the big Trump thing today. I'm wondering, which is more impactful to you this morning? Good morning to you, by the way. I'm Branden Rathert. Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, producer Hannah, Brian Houseworth is here. This story is certainly sexy. It's historic. Never before has a former president been indicted on criminal charges. We know it's all BS anyway, but it's happening. Which is more impactful? The Trump stuff or municipal elections today? What's going to affect me the most?
Municipal elections.
You're right. Which is sexier? The way the news outlets covered Trump. Did you watch any of this yesterday, Marsh?
Yeah, I caught a little of it till I couldn't take any more of it.
Oh, my goodness. It was crazy.
I just couldn't take any more.
One of the, and we're going to get into the stuff that's happening in the municipal elections. There are some important things. The more localer, the more importanter. I know we focus on national politics. We always talk about a presidential election, the one coming up in 2024. The more localer, the more importanter. Where your kids go to school. Who are the board members where your kids go to school? Who's on the city council? And you can look back to Columbia when the government pandemic started in the spring of 2020. You can look at what elected leadership in Columbia did, what they did to completely screw businesses over. That ARPA money, they said, well, let's give it to homelessness. Let's give it to the people you put out of business. That's why these elections matter. That's why who you vote for matters. Look at what happened in Columbia. Vice versa, and I don't like to compare, Jefferson City, Marsh, in my recollection, during the government pandemic, relatively unscathed.
Yeah, they didn't go around and shut, businesses down willy-nilly like some places did, like St. Louis County, St. Charles County, et cetera, maybe even a few in Columbia.
And look at what's happened in local schools. Look at what's happened in schools in Fulton and Callaway County. Not much, because they have good leadership on the school boards. And again, and I hate to pick on Columbia, but look at what's happened in the Columbia School District. That's why these elections matter.
Well, there's no question about it, and I hope we keep driving this point home and emphasize it for everybody out there, especially for the people in the back. We have so many people listening to us this morning that are worried about former President Trump. It's a huge story, no question. You should be talking about it, and it's going to be a spectacle. Think about the cost of all that security. It's going to be probably millions of dollars. But the bottom line is this, Branden, and this is the fact. What is going to happen in these local elections today will have a bigger impact on people's daily lives than what is happening up there, as big as that is, and it's a huge story. But even if Brianna is correct, the county clerk of Boone County, 20%, Mr. Korsmeyer is going with 12%. That means if those are accurate, 80% of the people will have stayed home. That is very, very disappointing.
Yeah, when I wake up in the morning, am I going to have to walk out to a garage full of cardboard because I don't have cardboard curbside recycling? And then am I going to have to wheel my roll cart out to the curb and then back out and hit a pothole on the way out of my driveway every single morning and be angry on my way to work? Yeah,
Man, you ought to talk to your alderman.
I should. I really should. I mean, those are the things that you deal with every day.
Stephanie Bell, also, not only she's with Ellinger Bell in Jefferson City, she's also an older woman in the city of Ashland. And Hannah, think about this. Hannah, when you go and vote on the weed tax, this is going to affect you. When we talk about stacking taxes on a county level and on a city level.
Whatever happened to Operation Pothole? Do you remember that from a couple years ago?
Still in existence. Still, where people call in the Is that the right one? That's the one I'm thinking of.
Way
No,
different.
Okay.
I don't think so, Brian.
Okay.
Operation Pothole, is that where we go and take buds of weed and cram it in potholes?
No.
I'm thinking of potholes
no.
on the road. Okay.
I'm thinking of the wrong thing,
Okay.
too, apparently. Houseworth, don't feel bad.
Operation Pothole was a meme going around the internet, and they basically said, "Hey, let's legalize marijuana and use the taxes from that to fix all the potholes in the road." And it's Operation Pothole. Yeah.
And that's going to be an interesting question locally. As a matter of fact, Janet Thompson, who's a commissioner in Boone County, covered this at a Mule Skinners event on Friday. This is where a bunch of Democrats get together. And she talked about stackable taxes. I spoke with somebody from the Department of Revenue, basically, and my big takeaway was, if a city passes at let's say Jefferson City passes 3% tax on rec weed, and then Cole County, and then it would be a 6% sales tax.
County Clerk Marvin Register from Cole County told us yesterday, though, that he didn't think it would double.
There is currently debate in the public sphere about that, and I have not researched the issue, but you can imagine why people would want to debate the issue. Now, here in mid-Missouri, you probably don't have people, one store on one side of the line and one store on the other side of the line, but you can imagine as we get closer to some place like St. Louis County, you've probably got stores in fair proximity where in one instance it could be 6 and in another it could be 3, and people could be competitively disadvantaged, such that the person who has the 6 might be want to go to court to get it knocked down to 3. Now, again, I have not re-looked at the language and done the legal research, but there does seem to be a fair amount of debate, and there's certainly an economic reason why someone would want to go to court to try to challenge the stackability of the tax.
Well, and here's the other thing is and again, I tend to think this thing will pass on the Columbia ballot in Boone County as well. But right now, and I've read the ballot language, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. Well, let's just say it's 7.5% sales tax, and then the state of Missouri taxes marijuana. Apparently, it's 6%. And then this would be 3% on top of that, and then the county would go. So you're looking at, but the city says, look, Ann Arbor, Boulder, Colorado, East St. Louis, they've got Springfield at Portland, Oregon. They're all in that 3% range.
And I wonder, too, is somebody who utilizes recreational marijuana, are they going to be upset at having to pay an extra 3% sales tax? Let's say like they're in the city of Jefferson, and they're going to leave Jefferson to go outside of city limits, so they save 3% tax on their $100 worth of weed. I don't know that it would work that way. And the other thing that could be an issue today, weather.
The earlier that you vote, obviously, the more likely you are to miss the weather. That's probably everybody's safest bet because it just is kind of a bummer to have to go out in the rain to vote.
Brianna Lennon, Boone County Clerk. By the way, Boone County. Steve Korsmeyer telling us yesterday, what did he say, 12, 14%, Marsh? 12% voter turnout is what's expected, and I think typically that's about average for
13%. He told us last year.
Yeah,
so that tracks right along.
14%. I guess record early voting because of no excuse absentee voting. But weather could be an issue today. What's going to happen weather-wise?
Well, we've got two potential, for especially our listeners at KWS. You want to listen to this closely, and Eagle listeners as well, because two potential rounds today. The first one is a conditional chance, which means they're not sure the storms will form, but we're looking at a time frame of 2 to 6. It'll be right in the window of voting if these storms form. Now, if they form, it's going to be very large hail, possibly strong tornadoes. That's what they're worried about. I did speak to Mr. Goslin at the National Weather Service. That would be Columbia. That would be Jefferson City. That would be Mexico. That would be Moberly. Better chance of severe weather would be in the overnight hours, and we're looking sometime in Columbia, Jeff City, Fulton between 11 and 2. I know Jessica Hafner has tracked this, John Ross as well, probably between, let's say, 1 and 3. That looks like a very fast-moving storm through. That would not impact the voting, but something to be watching for.
And for everyone else who might be caught off guard, like me, high of 86. I was last night. I'm like, what am I going to wear tomorrow? And I'm like, 86. Where did that? I'm like, let me go down to the basement and pull out all of my summer stuff. Hold on a sec.
Thank you for saying something, Marsha. I don't know if as a dude you have to deal with this, but kind of the same thing. Like, what am I going to wear? Because I have my winter wardrobe in my closet.
We do that for the kids so they wear, weather appropriate clothes, and I opted not to swap out their wardrobe last weekend, and I am regretting it. But it's supposed to get cooler later in the week, but I'm I was shocked by that 86 today. It's going to be hot.
And then tomorrow, almost 40 degrees cooler. So today we're going to get like this close to 90, and then tomorrow we'll be lucky to hit 50. It's crazy, but some of those storms today could be severe. Hopefully not a repeat of what we saw on Friday. Off the text, 874-9390 from James. She says these extra taxes on pot are going to keep drug dealers in business. And that's another question I've been wondering. And I reached out to a dispensary because I have some questions. Because there's a dispensary not too far from...
For a friend, right?
Yeah, for a friend.
Shops at Broadway.
On the job research.
Broadway in Columbia. Like 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Line of cars lined up to go through the drive-thru. They don't want to get up out of the car and go in and pick out the weed. They're going through the drive-thru. The parking lot was packed. It's not the first time I've seen it. So anyhow, I sent some questions to a dispensary. Do you think most of your clientele, is it people that like imbibed in high school and college and then, got a family, got a job and just quit doing it and now going, oh, it's legal now? Like, what's the age range of most of the people buying recreational weed? Do you find... Are people not going to their weed dealer anymore now that it's legal? Are they actually going to dispensaries to buy it? Is it cheaper to buy it off the streets? Not really important in the scheme of things.
I think that's the point, is to push people into the regulated market and off of the black market. And I think it probably did that. But from what I know from my friends, I would say that the age range is quite substantial.
It's quite high.
Yeah. I mean, you got all your old... Yes.
Give you a few points for that one.
But, I know a lot of people who are like old hippies who are really excited and who like it to sleep and who like it to just chill out. I know a lot of young people who, kind of grew up on, that was their drug of choice and that's their thing. And I know people my age who are, prefer it over some other things. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that I'm aware of that use it. It's just because I know there's still this moral, oh my gosh, it's marijuana, but they grew up on watching those movies in 8th grade called Reefer Madness, and they believe because that was distilled into their heads when they were kids in school, and they still think that way. It is really no different than somebody going home, I'm going to have a glass of wine before I have dinner. It's no different.
There is an expo coming up at Lakeside Ashland on 420. But it's actually like it's a business expo to learn about the different products. So if you are curious, you might check it out. It's an event that's been annual. I think it's been somewhere up in Columbia the last couple of years. But it's a place you can learn.
Might smell like the rope factory's on fire this year, though, huh?
So Trump, he's in New York this morning, getting ready for a court appearance later today. We start with a local election stuff. That is more in the Trump stuff might be sexier. Coming up 6:35, we're going to talk the way the news outlets have covered it. I saw something incredible on MSNBC last night, and you just got to hear what happened. It's like second grade level behavior. We'll do that at 6:35. Coming up 6:20. Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell. What are you working on?
We're talking about how impactful our local elections are right here in mid-Missouri, but what other local elections you should be watching around the country today.
That's interesting. That's
All he's ever talked about is defunding the police, and I really believe that our police need much more resources.
Iris Martinez is the Cook County Circuit Court clerk. She's talking about the mayoral election in Chicago. Kind of a big deal. That's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
We know how important our local elections are here today in mid-Missouri, but there are also several local elections going on across the country that are impactful. Of course, in Chicago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot was the first incumbent in 40 years to seek re-election and lose, and that happened in February. Now, two candidates are facing off for the mayor spot. There is a moderate Democrat that's backed by the police union and major business groups. There's also a progressive candidate, but that election is happening today. And of course, being, the Chicago mayor is an important role, and folks are watching it pretty closely, especially with, so much crime going on. And Chicago's a city that obviously has to deal with that as well.
Well, they voted for Lori Lightfoot because she checked the boxes. She was black. She was lesbian. Oh, yeah, she's the mayor. And 4 years later, buyer's remorse.
Right. Also, Wisconsin Supreme Court. Now, we don't talk about Supreme Court races very often, and here in Missouri we have a different plan, but in some states they actually are elected. Now, in Wisconsin, it's kind of a nonpartisan, quote-unquote, nonpartisan race. However, they have kind of emerged as a conservative candidate and a progressive candidate. And it's catching headlines because it's the most expensive race in Supreme Court history, apparently, tripling the previous $15 million record in Illinois in 2004. And it matters. So the Democrat candidate is obviously saying abortion is on the line. And it matters because so many cases are going up to the United States Supreme Court, and they're kicking it back, saying this is a state's issue. So if we remember the Dobbs case with abortion, they did that with a lot of the redistricting cases, with a lot of election cases. And so, in the last several years, the Supreme Court's just been saying, hey, states have to deal with these issues. And so that state Supreme Court is becoming ever more important. And I think that's why you're seeing so much money flooding in to this race. And I agree. I mean, it is becoming more important.
The more localer, the more importanter.
And Missouri is going to actually, I think, turn over 2 spots here in the near future on our own state Supreme Court. So that race will be decided today. A lot of eyes watching that race. Also, everyone, we're on Trump watch today, right?
Oh, yeah. He's in New York this morning. He's probably up by now eating some Mickey D's, getting ready for his court appearance.
Does this feel like the longest countdown ever?
Yesterday, and we're going to get into this, but what happened on the national news outlets yesterday, the way it was like you would have thought like they were following OJ's Ford Bronco 1995 or something. It was insane.
All right, so what you need to know for today, it's 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central is when we're expecting him to surrender. He's also giving a big speech tonight, and typically when you're, under a criminal investigation, you keep your mouth shut, not Trump. So be on the lookout for his speech later tonight, too.
That's not how he rolls. Coming up 6:35 here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri about that Chinese spy balloon that Biden said, they were
breach for the United States, just the fact that the balloon came into the airspace and flew over the country for so many days?
No, look, the total amount of intelligence gathering that's going on by every country around the world is overwhelming. And the idea that a balloon could traverse, break American airspace is, anyway, it's not a major breach. I mean, look, it's a violation of international law. It's our airspace. And once it comes in our space, we can do what we want with it.
Couple of things there. I like when he just gives up. Anyway, whatever. I don't have the energy or the mental fortitude to try to complete a thought here, so I'm not going to answer your question. And second of all, he lied to you.
But then he said it's a violation of international law, and then we can do what we want with it. So shoot it, right? I mean, isn't that the answer?
Did. Stephanie, they did shoot it down.
After how many days, weeks? I don't know how long it was.
And John, that Chinese spy balloon. By the way, so the president is lying. We have that story coming up here. And this thing, remember, this flew over at least one military installation in Missouri where you used to hang out.
Yeah, right over Whiteman Air Force Base, and it came right over mid-Missouri, as judged by all the pictures we got sent by listeners and everybody else.
Biden's, nothing to worry about.
I'll never forget that day. I woke up from a nap and I'm scrolling through Facebook, still, blinking the sleep out of my eyes, and there was like 20 photos of a white dot in the sky on my Facebook feed. And it took me a very long time to realize what was happening.
Well, as what it was doing, it was gathering intelligence from the country of America. This according to a news story. This is from NBC, and not everybody has picked up on this yet. I don't know if they're waiting to verify sources or what it is, but the Chinese spy balloon that flew across the U.S. was able to gather intelligence from several sensitive American military sites, despite the Biden administration's efforts to block it from doing so. In other words, he just lied to you. China was able to control the balloon so it could take multiple passes over some of the sites, at times flying in figure 8 formation, so it could go back the whole time while we're not shooting it down. It's doing figure 8s. Come, oh yeah, there's the Callaway nuclear facility. There's Whiteman. Oh, there's Fort Lent. Let's do a figure 8.
And we kind of heard that from folks in Missouri who are keeping an eye on it. Like, why does it seem like it's hanging out here, in this one spot for a while? Like, not like it's just blowing through the wind. And I mean, people picked that up that day. It was kind of obvious.
The other thing is that apparently it was transmitting information back to Beijing, and it was happening in real time. John Tester, he's from Montana, senator from Montana. He's a Democrat. He ain't real pleased with Joe.
At some point in time, I think the president needs to talk to the American people. There's a lot of people that are very concerned. Freedom and privacy is a big issue in Montana and across this country. People are concerned. I think it would help.
So he's saying, he went on to say on Fox yesterday, John Tester, the Democrat from Montana, he went on to say, listen, Joe's you got to communicate to us. You got to do something. 874-9390. Chuck is in his truck. Chuck, where are you listening from this morning?
Oh, just come out of North Dakota, heading through Minnesota, coming down I-35, going to run to Kansas City.
Well, we appreciate you listening in North Dakota and Minnesota today. What can we do for you?
Well, have you ever wondered or had, you notice something in somebody's voice when they speak that you can't, once you notice it, you can't ignore it? Well, this happened to me with Biden when he says, look, man, or something of that nature. Mm-hmm. He's basically saying in his arrogance that he's had his entire life, so he's kept his arrogance intact, how stupid you are, how beneath you, or how beneath him you are, and how ignorant for even, having an opinion or some actual facts to speak of. Have you not caught that? He just kind of talks to...
a kind of mild slight. He is trying to imply that you're an idiot, that you even have to ask the question, or that you don't understand his BS answer. You are the idiot. That is called gaslighting, and that is something. Again, this is a good learning moment, Chuck, because we have a bunch of younger listeners that are wondering what's happened to their retirement and all that stuff, why they're paying 19 cents more a gallon this week for gas than what they did last week. So we have all these new people listening to the show, and they think when we talk about Joe Biden and his lying and his stumbling, they think it's just Biden bashing. It is not Biden bashing. We are simply pointing out specific examples of when the president of the United States, when he lies to you, and you bringing that up, the way he treats people, that's called gaslighting. He's trying to make you think you're dumb. So when you hear about progressives gaslighting, that's exactly what Chuck is talking about. Anything else we can do for you?
Nope. I'm just listening like I do every day.
Well, we appreciate you listening in North Dakota this morning.
Keep an eye out for those balloons for us.
My goodness. Just flat out lied. And there's no consequences.
Well, and then what about the other ones that we did shoot down? Were they science projects? Or, did we learn any? Where's the report on that?
So that's what they did, John. That's what it sounds like. They let the big one go. Now, they did shoot it down.
After it took all of our stuff. And also, I guess it had a self-destruct mechanism, right?
I guess.
And had an interesting caller to Gary Nolan yesterday who surmised that maybe we let it keep flying over and we put up misinformation to the balloon to pick up on.
Oh.
Aren't we that smart?
No.
Playing around in the what if barrel. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. My name is Branden Rathert. To my left is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
In front of me, producer Hannah.
What up?
Close to me, John Marsh.
In the house.
Brian Houseworth running around somewhere.
Chuck made me a little bit nervous because he was like, I pick up stuff in people's voices, and we got trolled a little bit last week. I thought he was going to give us some hate on the show a little bit, but no.
874-9390, 874-9390. You might be wondering, how come you guys aren't talking about Trump? What about the Trump arraignment? Because local election's more impactful than that. But this was kind of so they were all guilty of this yesterday. It's just insane. I don't know if it's a slow news day, but I'm not kidding. What it reminded me of was the summer of 1995. It was June, early summer.
It reminded Hannah of that as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 1995. What a great year. Says Hannah, who was born in 2001. It reminded me of all the TV stations going live to follow O.J. Simpson in that white Ford Bronco. That's what it reminded me of. Now, obviously, stakes are bigger here, but the way the TVs covered it yesterday, this is Fox News, this is The Five, Greg Gutfeld, Martha McCollum. Really, the money shot here is, so it's about 15 seconds. The money shot is at the end when Martha McCollum comes in and corrects Greg Gutfeld.
All of those people want him back in because he pays their mortgage. He's what gets everybody to watch the news. They're going to cover him like a burqa. They pretend that he's awful, but they all of those clowns need him to survive.
We covered it like that at 3 o'clock.
Martha, that's how Fox has been doing it too. But nobody did what MSNBC did yesterday. This is insane. Want you to hear this, but first let's chat with Josh, 874-9390. Josh is in Columbia this morning. What's on your mind, Josh?
How you doing? Well, my wife's a fourth grade teacher here in town, and unfortunately, 1/3 of her class is on a kindergarten reading level, and the other third of the class is in between kindergarten and fourth.
Now, when you say here in town, which town do you mean?
Columbia, I'm
okay.
sorry. Columbia. And, behavior is the biggest thing in her class. The biggest distraction in her class that keeps her from teaching is the behavior issues, which just don't seem to be dealt with, the way
at home
we were.
They're not dealt with in the schools, apparently, oftentimes.
No, there is no more going to the principal's office.
Yeah.
That's a thing of the past. It's just the teacher has to deal with it. So she has, along with 1/3 of her class being on a kindergarten reading level, 1/3 of her class are disciplinary, issues with them. So it's just a constant battle. And that's most of her job, is just wrangling that 1/3 of behavior issues, keeping them under control. and then trying to teach in between there. It's just really difficult.
So, Josh, you're saying that your wife, who teaches fourth grade in the Columbia Public School District, she's getting students that have left kindergarten, they've graduated from first grade, finished second grade, completed third grade, and yet members in the Columbia Public School District are still passing them up to fourth grade where they can barely read like a kindergartner.
She has, unfortunately, has students in her fourth grade class that can't add 2 plus 2.
Wow.
It's really bad. She's always taught in little surrounding districts around Columbia.
Yeah.
And she's done that for 10 years, and she was in shock. This was her first year in the Columbia Public Schools, and she was just in shock.
That's a story I have heard before from other teachers that they leave Columbia or they go to places like Blair Oaks or Callaway, and they're like, man, this is like, it's like heaven here because it's way different. Josh, I got to move forward. Do you know who you're voting for in the school board race in Columbia today?
We do. We know who we're voting for, and I hope there's some change enacted.
Yeah. Do you care to, would you like to verbalize who it is you're voting? And you don't have to, but if you want to, feel free to verbalize.
Well, it's down to 2. It's down to 2, and I'm not really sure yet. I mean, just some more listening today and maybe some more searching on my break, and I'll come up with an answer.
Well, I'm glad you're doing some homework. Josh, we appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Columbia School Board. Easy choice. Chuck Basie, John Potter. And this is interesting. As a matter of fact, I reached out to Jay Ashcroft's office about this, the sample ballot for Boone County. When it comes to the school district of Columbia, I'm going to make sure there's no names on here before I show this on camera. It says vote for 3 when it comes to the school board race because there are 3 openings. And I'll hold that up so you can see sample ballot, Boone County. And the language says vote for 3. Hannah, can you zoom in on that, please? It says vote for 3. I've reached out to the Secretary of State's office. You don't have to vote for 3.
Yeah, that's weird. It's vote for up to 3.
Yeah.
I don't know that I like that.
I don't think I like that either because here's what happens. People less intelligent than Josh are going to, I got to vote for 3. You do not have to vote for 3. As a matter of fact, there has been an argument in some conservative circles in parts of mid-Missouri saying only vote for 2. That way you're not diluting the vote. Vote for 3. That's interesting. I thought it should say vote for up to 3, but I'm not a clerk, nor am I an election attorney. All right, Ari Malber. MSNBC yesterday. So all the Trump stuff, CNN at one point, they were showing a map and they were showing exactly where Trump's plane was at that moment in time. It was the Trump plane tracker, like, now he's in Georgia. So yesterday, MSNBC, Ari Melber cross-examines on TV Michael Cohen. They're doing like a mock trial.
Why should this jury, Mr. Cohen, take everything you're saying as 100% serious?
My goodness, they're doing a mock trial on MSNBC ahead of Trump's court appearance today.
Let's just get it over with. Let's do it. I want to see the actual indictment. That's what I don't want to hear what anybody has to say. I don't want to see the mock trial. I want to see what's on the paper.
That's the other thing I've enjoyed is these TV stations doing polls. Do you agree with the indictment? You don't know what's in the indictment.
There's so much speculating, right?
the apparatus, again, they're 2,000-year fire trucks, and so they've been in service for over 20 years, 23 years now. It's getting harder and harder to find parts to replace and to fix them. But we do take very good care of our apparatus. Not a lot of places have fire trucks in service for over 20 years.
Gail Blomenkamp, Boone County Fire Protection District. One of the things folks in Boone County got to be voting on today, bond issue. I think that's an easy yes. They need the equipment. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, Brian Hausworth, producer Hannah, who at 7:25 is going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah. I don't know if we can top yesterday's. I trust you have a good one.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Today's actually came from John Marsh.
Very nice. Good work. What'd you send her, John?
Whoa.
It's a surprise.
Not telling.
Hey, it's posted on the Wake Up Facebook page.
Oh, get on the Wake Up Facebook page. Dow was up 327 yesterday. How's it going to open today? Stephanie Bell has the morning bell coming up 8:25. And also, this is we're encouraging people to get out and vote. We always get out, vote, vote, vote. There's a guy, he's a regular guest on the Gary Nolan show. Gary Nolan's here weekdays at 9. Love the guy. Incredible guest. As a matter of fact, he's on Think Tank Thursdays. He doesn't vote. And he has very specific, like he's a conscientious objector when it comes to voting. And I was shocked that it's coming from this guy. I'm like, you, of all people, as intelligent as you are and as informed about policy and law, and you don't vote. And he told me why. And it was so interesting. I'm like, you got to come on the show, but you got to do it on Election Day.
I like it.
He's here at 8:10 this morning. One of the most popular video games of all time. I put up Frogger, Pac-Man, and then the games. Mario Brothers. And then the games that people play nowadays, I've never got the concept because you don't win or lose. You just go around the woods shooting people. But Tetris, one of the most popular games of all time. As a matter of fact, it was so quick, became so hot so quickly that back in the early 90s, 1994, remember this, Hannah?
Yeah.
The writer Jeffrey Goldsmith coined the term the Tetris effect to explain the psychological phenomenon that occurs when people devote so much time and attention to something that it begins to pattern their thoughts, mental images, and dreams. In other words, we think about it all the time. Everything we do is based around this. And now there's a movie about the video game.
Yeah, I think it's already out. But yeah, it actually premiered. It's got like a lot of tech interesting stuff. So it premiered at South by Southwest. And so it talks just about the beginnings of Tetris, which I guess they debuted at the CES show in Las Vegas, which still happens, but back in 1988. And it was created by a Russian programmer, and Nintendo wanted to get a hold of it. So, folks in the US had to go over to Russia and try to negotiate this deal. And there was all these kind of contracting issues and who would get the exclusive rights. And at the time, Nintendo really wanted Tetris for, of course, the Game Boy, I had a Game Boy. It was great. And that was the primary, game on the Game Boy. So lots of international issues and fun tech issues in the movie. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm very excited to watch it. It was a great game. And it kind of talks about, we talked about the Jordan movie coming out in the beginnings of the Air Jordan. So this is the beginnings of Tetris. I'm excited to watch it.
So this is what Hollywood is relegated to. They have movies about tennis shoes and video games. That's where we are. And I didn't know you were a gamer.
I'm
Flattering lighting in full bright color. Their candidate is in grainy high contrast black and white. Spotted through a telephoto lens from behind a bush, coming back from God only knows where. Our guy points at the horizon and holds a baby. Their guy doesn't have a baby. Their guy has a golf club. The voiceover for our guy is calm, measured, bright. Their guy gets the lower register. And sometimes we slow down. Our guy has clean headlines and the beautiful lens flare America needs. Here's a scary graph over a photo of their guy awkwardly laughing. Snap zoom. Do you want a snap zoom like that in office? Here's a photo of our guy saluting military veterans. Jump cuts, flashes, static, aggressive colors. You can't trust a guy with graphics like this. Our guy gets stock footage of sunrises and an American flag. Their guy's flag is upside down and on fire. Intercut with overdue bills, war, and a crying baby. Our guy gets doctors and astronauts and stimulus checks. Flatline, an eagle, hurricane, the Statue of Liberty, crime scene tape, Ronald Reagan, a girl running in a wheat field to escape a dangerous sexual predator, welding, atomic bomb. This election, the choice is yours. Their guy or our guy. Inspiring slogan.
Every political ad ever. Election today, municipal elections. Hopefully you will get out and vote. Interesting story coming up 8:10 this morning. And this guy, I love this guy. He's on the Gary Nolan show every Thursday. This guy is a conscientious objector when it comes to voting. And it's just such a weird dynamic because the guy is incredibly intelligent, thoughtful. He knows a lot of stuff, very well spoken, but doesn't vote. And he has some very specific reasons. Hear those reasons coming up 8:10 this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. What's Hot with Hannah? That's coming up 7:25. Got another good one for us today. As a matter of fact, her and Marsh have been conspiring.
Conspiring is a good word.
Right. Go dark immediately. Conspiring together to bring us a good one today. So the elections are today. So Trump, nothing new on Trump. He's going to be in court today, like 1 o'clock our time, 1:30 in the afternoon, about when Gary Nolan's getting off the air. Trump will be in a courtroom. There won't be any cameras. And there is worry that there's going to be a gag order. In other words, you have a guy who's running for president of the United States of America, and a judge may be going to say, you guys can't talk about anything about the case. If that is central to your campaign, and if you're
luck,
right, you're going to try to put a gag order on Trump, you know what you should do? Give him some hush money.
Or a big pile of McDonald's.
So there's the idea that there could be a gag order, and he won't talk, or he won't be able to talk. And as John says, that's just simply not going to work. Everybody is here. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
I'm Brian Houseworth. There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
My name is Branden Rathert. What's the weather going to do? Because we're going out to vote on a bunch of things.
Yep.
In Cole and Callaway and Boone counties. What's the weather going to do?
Well, we've got two possible severe weather threats today. The first one is more of a conditional chance, which means they're not sure it's going to happen. Window would be from 2 to 6. That would be Columbia, Jeff City, Fulton, Boonville, and Moberly. The problem is, if these storms develop, Jason Goslin of the Weather Service tells me we could see some very large hail like Friday and strong tornadoes, but we're not sure on that one. The one where much more, it looks like something is going to happen between, let's say, 11 tonight and 2 a.m. in the Columbia, Jeff City areas. Potentially tornadoes, potentially large hail, potentially damaging winds. It'll be fast moving. There's no watches at this point. So if you're going to vote this morning, and I know we've heard from some voters who are worried about the weather, please vote this morning, because if you're trying to vote in the afternoon, you potentially could be impacted. And I know Brianna and her team have plans in place. They do. But if you're don't want to be impacted by the weather, get it done before noon.
874-9390, 874-9390. We are at school because we are getting a lot of texts saying, hey, yeah, get out and vote. And I think that's cool. In school board race, Columbia, John Potter, Chuck Basie. School board in Jefferson City, if I were voting, Brad Bates, Michael Harvey, Scott Hovis. City council in Jeff City, Scott Spencer, who's been on the show before. Mm-hmm. Very good choice. Mark Schwartz, also in the city council race. City of Columbia, 5th ward race. Don Waterman. This Greg Bush guy. Woo! He did an interview with Randy Tobler on the Tobler show. He did? He's like a parody of wokeism. Like, you listen, like, You don't really believe what you're saying, do you? This guy is flat out frightening, I think, because he's so stupid. From listening to him, I can't say that's a fact that he's stupid. I know he's book learned. He's in the medical field. But it's like, come on, dude, you're joking. You really don't believe this stuff you're spouting out in public that everybody can hear, by the way, from Sedalia to Vandalia, from Iowa down to almost Arkansas. Everybody can hear you. You don't really believe what you're saying. Don Waterman is who you want to vote for in that
Greg
race.
Bush actually kind of took Randy to task, and Randy pushed back on that. Greg didn't like his question, as you heard it as well, Brandon, about the homeless. And Mr. Bush has some concerns about all the evictions going on in Northeast Columbia. That's going to be something he says he will focus on. And he was talking about sins in that interview as well. It was some stuff on that. So it was interesting, although Mr. Waterman was on too, so he gave them both, and they were on the same time. Both long interview. They were both on for about a half an hour. I want to make one point, though, on this Columbia School Board race I think is very important. You can vote up to 3 people. That's very important, I think, because people they're going to see this on. They're going to get confused. You don't have to vote for 3. You don't have to vote for anyone. You can vote up to 3 people.
As a matter of fact, I've been chatting with the Secretary of State's office this morning, and so the ballot, at least in Boone County, I don't know what it says in Cole County. Because it's kind of the same situation there with the school board. You've got X number of open slots, and you've got more candidates than that running for those slots. So there's an argument in mid-Missouri, just vote for 2. But you look at the ballot, the official sample ballot for Boone County, School District of Columbia School Board, says vote for 3. That... I'm not a clerk. I don't know the legalities.
I don't like it.
I don't either. It's just a Joe Schmo sitting on a bar stool kind of politics. That, I think, is wrong. It shouldn't say vote for 3. It should say vote for up to 3. You don't have to vote for 3. Most people are making the argument, hey, vote for 2. And the 2 you vote for, John Potter and Chuck Basie.
Just pulled up Cole County's ballot, and each one of theirs says, and there are a lot of them on there, says vote for 3.
Not up to.
No.
Wow.
That's interesting. Maybe that's standard language. I don't. In the past, I know I've seen it says up to 3 in the past, but the fact that it's in Cole County as well leads me. Maybe it's standard. I don't know. But the big thing for people in both Jeff City and Columbia and elsewhere, I'm sure in other school districts as well, you can vote for up to 3 people. Chuck Basie, by the way, sent a threat that he apparently received as well. I saw that overnight. I think you got it as well.
Yeah, people are. He sent a picture. Somebody went and spray painted a phallic symbol on one of his big campaign signs, and then posted. I think the medium was Facebook, but just said some vile things. And that's what some of these people, like a Dave Rathel, who tries to be in political circles, that's what they do. They resort to name calling. There's the Chuck Basie campaign sign. Somebody spray painted a phallic symbol on, then just some vile language in a post calling him names and stuff like that. But that's what progressives
It was more than being called names. They said there was little more than that in the email, allegedly.
Allegedly in the email I'm reading here.
Yeah. But it was concerning.
874-9390. Reggie is in Columbia this morning. What can we do for you, Reggie?
Yeah, as far as the gag order on President Trump, there's no way to do that because he's got chirpies and there ain't no way to tweet it.
He's got the chirpies, ain't no way to tweet it. What else you got?
Well, I'm looking to go vote this morning, and I've been driving around a half hour looking for my voting places that I used to go to, during the other elections, and they're not open. I used to vote at the Revolution Church.
Are you in Boone County?
Yes.
Okay. What you're going to need to do is call 573-886-4375 and make sure you call that number because they can tell you where to go. There have been some changes, and that happened in November as well. But, yeah, make sure you call that number, and Brianna and her team will be able to tell you exactly where you need to go.
Hey, Reggie, real quick, because I'm going to text Brianna here. Where do you usually go?
The Revolution
Church.
In North Arcade.
All right. And
Yeah.
you went there, and there's nobody there.
No.
All right. Thanks. Hey, Reggie, we appreciate.
I went there at 6:15.
6:15. All right. Listen, thanks for taking time out of your day to be a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and I'll include this in my text to Breon Lennon, Boone County Clerk. 874-9390. 874-9390. Trump today, court appearance a little bit after 2 o'clock. The most entertaining part of all this, national news outlets' coverage of this. MSNBC yesterday, they did like a little mock trial. CNN had the flight tracker. Look, he left Florida and went straight up the East Coast, and now he's in Georgia. Now he's in South Carolina. Locally, when we talk about things that are affecting us locally, the affordable housing, workforce development housing, homelessness, family homelessness, whatever you want to call it, big issue all across mid-Missouri. It's an issue that really, I think, started in Columbia, and Columbia gets marketed not with city money, but within the homeless circles, it gets marketed as a place to go. Hey, if you're home, go to Columbia. Those bleeding liberals and they paint unicorns and rainbows, and they'll just give you money. They're socialists. They just give it to you, even though you ain't doing nothing to earn your keep. They just give it to you willy-nilly. And then in Jefferson City, the thing with the workforce development housing. And again, John, I'd argue all day long, they probably would have been better off, to be honest, in saying, hey, this is affordable housing. But in my opinion, when they try to present it as or workforce development housing, people saw through the lie, and then you lose some equity because you've lied. That's my take on it. So I wonder about stories like this.
A New York Times study ranked Columbia third amongst nearly 400 metropolitan cities for affordable housing. According to Rocket Homes, Columbia is in a seller's market.
So if we have an issue with affordable housing and homelessness, why is this magazine saying, hey, you have some of the most affordable housing in the country? Coming up, 7:25-ish, we are going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah. What do you and John have cooked up for us today, Hannah?
We're going to file this one under a Major League blunder. MLB.
MLB blunder. Major League blunder. MLB. What do they have for us today? 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:25. Wow. John should send me stories for What's Hot with Hannah more often.
There we go. We can take credit for it.
Yeah.
time for What's Hot with Hannah.
So John texted me first thing this morning before the show even started. He said, "Hey, I sent you a really great idea for What's Hot with Hannah." And it far exceeded my expectations, right? It is hilarious. It's posted on the Wake Up Facebook page, and it involves our friends over in Milwaukee, the Brewers.
Boo.
Yeah, the Booers, right? And yesterday they celebrated their home opener for the season. Did you see this story, Brandon?
Glanced at the headline, didn't read it.
So at American Family Field, things are happening. There's tailgaters out in the parking lot, lots of excitement. There was a little bit of rain in the forecast, but they were still going to play because they have a really fancy retractable roof. And as
convertible stadium.
Yes. As many home openers often do, they had a military flyover planned for during the national anthem, which is honestly one of the coolest things to experience. It's one of those things that just makes your heart soar. I love seeing them fly over Faroe Field before Mizzou football games. But there was one snag in this plan because of that rain that was in the forecast that I mentioned. They had the fancy retractable roof closed. So,
are you serious?
I am dead serious. This big military flyover.
Big B1 out of Ellsworth.
Yes. Big patriotic show flew over the stadium, and no one inside the stadium actually saw it. The tailgaters got a hell of a show, but yeah, no one inside the stadium saw it.
Who is without a job this morning there? Wow.
Well,
there's another video up you can go look at that's actually from the cockpit of the aircraft as they fly over the closed roof stadium.
My question is, did they forget to open the roof just for the national anthem, or did they forget to cancel the flyover when they decided the roof was going to be closed? Which one is it?
I'm going to go for option C. They're going to call it was a lack of communication. It was nobody's fault. Somebody somewhere along the line is communication.
And who was more surprised? Like the guys in the jet looking down like, hello? Or the guys in the stadium who can hear the flyover like, oh, whoops.
Or the tailgaters outside going, they know the roof's closed, right?
Wow. You ever do...
Go Milwaukee.
You ever do something like really stupid and you're just like, I can't believe that I did that?
Yes.
Yeah, what was the last thing you did?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Well, mine last week, I'm steaming broccoli out in the kitchen here and pouring this scalding hot water on
Which
it.
Smells great, by the way.
And I go to take a bite, and it was hot.
You took it out of the boiling water, and you were surprised?
And somebody saw it. They're
Yep.
standing there going, that's hot, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, I know. I didn't leave the stadium roof closed or anything like that. But sometimes we just do something so stupid that you're like, what happened there? Probably not Steph, though. She probably never does that.
Never. Nope.
It is the Brewers. I mean, come on.
This is one of those stories that you almost fact check expecting it to be wrong, and it's not, and it's delightful.
It's like when NBC comes out with a story and says, oh, that China balloon that Joe said there is no nefarious reasons that balloon was flying over the U.S., and then it is. We find out it's like...
Trying to find the Brewers.
Come on, man. Are you being for real? Is this a story that came out on April 1st? Coming up, some of the highlights from local city council meetings last night.
I think just local news is like the most important stuff to me, even though it's kind of like bad stuff
most critical issue, and filling the police vacancies, inviting police officers to return, and as you can see, the Chicago Police Department is in fact doing that in a very aggressive way now.
Chicago mayoral candidate Paul Vallis ahead of today's municipal election in Chicago. That's a huge race because remember, Lori Lightfoot, she was mayor of Chicago. She was black. Check that box. She's a lesbian. Check that. We're voting for her, and you see what happens when people vote with their hearts, when they vote with unicorns and rainbows. You see what's happened in Chicago. 4 years, they're like out. So runoff today between two candidates. Lori Lightfoot not in there. This was kind of interesting as we look around Missouri here. Melville, this is a school district. This is a little south of St. Louis, South St. Louis County. There's 3 candidates. Melville School Board, 2 of them were disqualified because of personal financial disclosure reports. They had a deadline to meet, and apparently they didn't do that. Now, is what this is going to do, this disqualification is going to result in a couple of post-election vacancies. It's a 7-member board. They'll be without some boards. So state law gives the current board to fill the vacancy. And then, and there's a lot of other things interesting.
Well, and if you recall, there was that small town that everybody got disqualified on the PFD, and so no one was eligible basically to win, and so there was just going to be write-ins. The rules around PFDs for candidates is really strict. The Missouri Ethics Commission, essentially you have, I think it's 15 days after filing. Anyway, you get a small window where they give you a warning and you get a late fee, and then after another small window, you're disqualified.
PFD, personal finance disclosure. So they treat it like it's Blockbuster. If you're late, you can. I think it's like $10 a day or something.
Yeah,
like that.
It's not bad. And then after a certain, you're just you're completely disqualified. So yeah, if you go to the Ethics Commission, you can see all my tax returns. Not really, but it depends on your city. And you can get on the ethics website. And actually, they're not posted online, but they are public. Your PFD is, but you have to request them. And so and what they are, and people are like, well, what people think when, I think a lot of folks think the personal financial disclosure is like tax returns, because you hear so much about that when it comes to Trump and everything else. But a lot of it is, what are your personal business interests, such that do you have a conflict of interest with the government in which you're interacting with? So do I own a printing business, and am I convincing Ashland to print a bunch of stuff with my company, making sure that I am not personally benefiting from being an alderperson in Ashland. And so I am disclosing what business interests I have, so that way folks can determine whether or not I'm voting on things that might benefit me personally or my family. And different cities, depending on what the ordinance is, might have different requirements. But everyone, so you have to file it when you announce your candidacy, and then generally you have to update it annually with the Ethics Commission, and they keep those on file for anybody, not only local government elected officials, but a lot of folks who are appointed inside of state government also have to file certain PFDs. So you should just be aware of that requirement. And if you're interested in, you could certain levels of those are public.
I always think it's interesting because it seems like there's a general acceptable rule in the workplace. You don't talk about your salary with the person sitting in the cubicle next to you. It's just something you just don't do. But if you work for the state or you're an elected politician, it's all out there, man.
Yeah, it's public. It's actually kind of nice because, like, if I'm looking at hiring someone, or, I can be like, I wonder how much they make. Can I afford that person? Or, it's helpful, but I'm sure among state coworkers, it's got to be frustrating if you're sitting in the cube next to somebody and exactly.
It's all public record.
Well, yeah, but you know how much they make, and you're like, that person is not worth it.
I sit here next to.
That's sorry.
Good take.
I don't know how much everybody else makes in here, but when you're in politics or you work for the state, you know exactly. You're like, man, they're way overpaid because they do such little work here. That's what you do. You get in, you get a job, you work really hard, show your value, and then you spend the next 28 years with that same company doing just enough to not get fired. 874-9390. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, Brian Hausworth. There is producer Hannah. My name is Branden Rathert, and we're looking across the nation. Some other interesting things that folks going out and voting for today. By the way, if you're having some kind of issues with where you're trying to vote today, please let us know. Maybe we can help. 874-9390. 874-9390. Another interesting story as it relates to elections coming out of Wisconsin. Stephanie has that story here in just a minute. But first, I want to welcome in, and just so you know, in the interest of being completely honest and open with you, this is not a pre-scheduled interview. Gail Blomenkamp, Boone County Fire Protection District, calling in to the show this morning. Mr. Blomenkamp, welcome in. What can we do for you?
Well, I just wanted to call and encourage people to get out and vote today. The Boone County Fire District has a no tax increase bond issue for $8 million to replace a fire station and buy some new fire trucks and new equipment for the entire fire district. And like always, we want as many people out there to vote as possible.
All right. And I think one of the biggest points of contention for a lot of folks, it's a bond issue. You want to raise my taxes. That's not what this is.
Correct. It's a no tax increase. So we're asking voters to continue the same 25-cent tax bond levy that was approved in 2014. And so that's all we're asking people to do. And if they, if they support what we're doing, vote their conscience. If we're not meeting their needs, they need to give us a call so we can fix it.
All right, Gail Blomenkamp calling in, Boone County Fire Protection District. Please let everybody know in the department today that everybody here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri appreciates what they do.
I will do that. I appreciate you guys.
All right. 874-9390. Interesting story in Wisconsin as it relates, because there's some interesting things happening, not just here in Missouri. I think one of the most interesting, there's two interesting things. Number one, and apparently we've got somebody has sent us a ballot for Sturgeon School Board, and it says the same thing on that ballot. Vote for 3, when we think it should say on the language, vote for up to 3. So just so you know, as you're heading out, if you're going out and you haven't voted yet, sample ballots. I know the one in Boone County says school board race, vote for 3. You absolutely, positively, without a doubt, you do not have to vote for 3. You can vote for 2. That way you don't get a third person wrangling up votes of somebody that you
vote for none of them.
You vote for none of them. You can vote for 1. I think that's interesting. Vote for 3. You do not have to vote for 3. I think that's almost disingenuous and intentional, my take on it.
I checked Chapter 115. A lot of times they set out the ballot language exactly how it has to be. I don't see that language in there. Now, it could be somewhere else. I'm going to have to do more research. But you're right. That doesn't sit with me. I don't like it.
Because people are going to see it. I have to vote for 3, and you don't. The other thing that's interesting, in Columbia, there's a race, First Ward, Pat Fowler, who is one of the most uber progressive. Like, you can hear her talk and you go, oh yeah, she's a progressive. Like that. She announced that she was dropping out of the race a while back. There's been some talk on the streets of Columbia that she's been actually mounting a quiet write-in campaign. As a matter of fact, to the point I'd heard it more than once, I asked the Boone County clerk, Brianna Lennon, I'm like, what happens, let's say, because Pat Fowler's name is still on the ballot. So it was convenient enough to wait until after the ballot language was final, but apparently there's talk. I don't know if it's true, but I heard it from more than one person that she is trying to mount a campaign encouraging people to vote for. Ask Brianna Lennon what would happen then. And I think it would go to the city clerk in Columbia if she were to win, despite the fact she says she's not in the race. And this is interesting in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so the spending on a Wisconsin Supreme Court case has topped $42 million. That exceeds the previous record, which was set in Illinois in 2004 of $15 million. And you might ask, why are we spending that much money in Wisconsin? And it's because if you've followed the U.S. Supreme Court, well, I guess I will speculate this is why. But if you followed the U.S. Supreme Court cases recently, they've been kicking a lot of the issues back to the states. And most recently in Dobbs, they said, really, this is a state's issue. You look at issues like redistricting, other election law issues. They're saying, really, this needs to be decided at the state level. And so state Supreme Courts are becoming ever more important. And Wisconsin has a different system. Of course, in Missouri, we have the Missouri plan where our judges are appointed. That's different than what Wisconsin has. They have elections, much like we have at the local level in many of our jurisdictions here in Missouri. And so they have kind of, even though it's nonpartisan, they have more of a conservative candidate and more of a left-leaning candidate. And of course, the Democrat-backed candidate is saying this is all about abortion. Apparently, the left-leaning candidate has about a $6 million advantage in the race, but huge stakes today in Wisconsin. That court traditionally has been leans conservative, but the Democrats obviously are trying to get a hold of it today. And also, so as we have that conversation about state Supreme Courts becoming ever more important, two things to point out again. that court is picked differently than the Missouri court. But also, we talk about this mandatory retirement age in Missouri, and it doesn't. It doesn't come up very often, I would say. 70 years old, and it's not as significant as it will be in the next, couple of years. So we just replaced a judge. Judge Robin Ransom was just appointed here recently. But in the next year, Judge Draper's mandatory date of retirement is August of 2023, and Judge Breckenridge's mandatory date of retirement is October of 2023. So if you think about it, let's see, Judge Ransom went on the court in 2021. So we'll get 3 new judges in basically 2 years. That's really impactful for your state Supreme Court. So
so you think about that, and it's well laid out. It's in places where they're voting on these Supreme Court justices where it could matter. It could absolutely.
And back to elections matter. I mean, that gives Governor Parson appointed Judge Ransom, and with 2 mandatory retirements in 2023, we talk about the impact of Governor Parson and how many statewide appointments he's gotten, but he'll also get 3 Supreme Court picks.
John Fetterman, what's happened to this dude? Remember, there was the whole long protracted battle about his health issues, and he said for months, lied to the voters, said, "Oh, I'm fine." He was in D.C. for, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, and then he's been hospitalized for 6 weeks. He's out.
My message right now isn't political. I'm just somebody that's suffering from depression.
I think, listen, and you know how we feel about issues as they relate to your mental well-being on the show. We take them very seriously. We try to be very open about them, and we try to, foster discussion about them because it's something, especially I think with dudes, you're a little bit more quiet about. And my first inclination there is John Fetterman, as much as I don't like the guy or the people that voted for him, they fell for that. Like, you don't see health issues there. And then you voted for him, and then he's there for a matter of days, and then he's gone again. So my first inclination is to say, yeah, John, way to promote mental health, and I'm just a guy with depression. I don't fall for it. I think he's full of crap. I think he's lying.
Well, and if you compare, like, McConnell tripped and fell, and we had like a play-by-play of every moment of every minute of his trip and fall, and then Fetterman disappears for how long? Now he's just back, and we don't know anything. It feels weird.
And then, of course, Biden.
And the idea that a balloon could traverse, break American airspace is, anyway.
I love that. Just quit. Just give up. I'm not even going to try. I almost appreciate the honesty there. It's Biden talking, telling us, lying to us. Oh, that balloon was not a threat. Story from NBC. Yeah, and actually there was some stuff there. Coming up, while we're in the White House, this is not an impactful story, but it's interesting. Kamala Harris is creating controversy.
Is anything she does impactful?
To some of her staff it is when they're on airplanes.
is going to play out. We just know that it is going to be a factor. We have crossed the Rubicon from people saying, on the left, President Trump should be indicted, to the discussion is going to be President Trump was indicted.
John Ratcliffe, former rep from Texas, former director of the National Intelligence Agency, and I like that. So you use the word...
is going to be a factor. We have crossed the Rubicon.
Rubicon, and I'm wondering, we joke about how the national news outlets and politicians every morning, they meet like at 4 o'clock in the morning while it's still dark in Washington, D.C., and they come in with their coffee and donuts, and they pass around these memos, and they say, here's the word that we are going to use today, whether you're on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, this is the word we're going to use over and over again today, because Bill Barr, former Attorney General, used the same word, Rubicon.
Now that the Rubicon has been crossed.
I guess it was the word of the day. Welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, Brian Hausworth, producer. Hannah, polls open until 7 o'clock tonight. If there's something we can do for you on that end, if you need some help with something, any questions, observations, please feel free to call and let us know. 874-93-9390. Kamala embroiled in more controversy. Apparently people that fly on Air Force Two, and they are flying to Africa the other day for her big visit there. They got crap food. And they heard over on Air Force One. So this would be like I would fly on the vice president's airplane. Stephanie Bell would be flying on Air Force One.
Of course.
Of course. But the folks that fly, Kamala staffers and the people that follow her are saying, we're just getting brown bag sandwiches to eat.
And I'm eating filet mignon, apparently.
On Air Force One.
But I'm complaining because apparently I have to pay for it myself.
You have to pay for it. Which is good, I guess, then we're not paying for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're getting. You're getting a ride on a jet, and you're complaining about having to front a little bit of money for your lunch, like what? And yeah, so then Kamala's people find out that, I'm complaining about my steak. You find out that I'm complaining about my steak, and I'm like, but wait a minute, I only got peanut butter and jelly.
And they got tuna salad, and this one got egg salad. How come I only got the peanut butter and jelly?
Ridiculous.
Problems. One of the things, Stephanie, flies way more often than I do, but we talk about airplane etiquette, and I'm wondering about the airplane etiquette on Air Force Two. One of the things, rule number one, don't bring food onto an airplane. I have my smeller is kind of weird. Like people out in the office, and they get done eating like microwavable food or something, and they put the container in their trash can out in the office.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Didn't you just say you heated up broccoli in the microwave?
Last week, yeah.
Yeah, that's gross.
Gas attack.
So there's some like general rules that, I think there's a list of these rules. There's like 20. And, most of these are common sense, like don't put your dirty feet on the seats. The middle seat person gets the armrest, what some people forget. Don't crawl over people. Just wait for them to move around. Be able to lift your own bags. But there's one on here that people are really guilty of, and it makes me so mad, so very mad. And I don't think people realize they do it, and it is horrifying.
What is it?
Do you know which one it is?
Oh, feet on the back of the seat?
No, that's pretty gross. It's the grabbing the back of the seat to stand up, because it like slingshots me. I'm a little person, so if you cannot literally go from a seated position to a standing position without having to slingshot me in the seat in front of you, like use your own armrest. But that irks me to no. Oh, it makes me so mad.
Great visual there. Coming up 8:10, a guy who is a conscientious objector when it comes to voting.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you. Get ready, pal.
And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Because I believe if you vote, you have no right to complain. People like to twist that around. I know. They say, well, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. But where's the logic in that? If you vote and you elect dishonest, incompetent people, and they get into office and screw everything up, well, you are responsible for what they have done. You caused the problem. You voted them in. You have no right to complain. I, on the other hand, who did not vote, who, in fact, did not even leave the house on Election Day, am in no way responsible for what these people have done and have every right to complain as loud as I want about the mess you created that I had nothing to do with.
Classic segment from George Carlin. I know sometimes folks, I really don't like that segment. It's just a comedy segment. And frankly, isn't he right? Isn't he right? If he didn't go and vote, he's not the one that put Biden in office. He's the one that didn't vote for this or that. You know, I met a dude, real life, like this, and and it happens all the time, John. Right? We meet people that an appalling lack of knowledge of politics. And the only reason I say I'm not saying that to criticize them, but these things that we vote on, they affect us. These have implications on what we do, and so we get people that don't vote. Sometimes just because it's just not in their wheelhouse. It's just not something they think about doing. So we have some of those. And then we have people that make a concerted effort to not vote, and they do it for very specific reasons. And I met somebody like that, and I'm like, oh, man, you got to come on and you got to tell your story on the show, but you have to do it on Election Day. And it's a voice you'd probably recognize. He is a regular guest on the Gary Nolan Show. Gary's here at 9 o'clock. It's my dad's favorite show. His name is Dave Roland. He is with the Freedom Center of Missouri. I love listening to this guy on Think Tank Thursdays with Gary Nolan. We want to welcome you to the show, Dave. So how come you don't vote?
I think George Carlin is onto something. No, honestly, for most of my life, I was adamant about voting in favor of it. And as I got older, got a little bit more experienced, my perspective changed. Part of that had to do with the fact that I spent about 4 years in Washington, D.C., seeing how that place functioned. And then as I continued to work in the public interest world and deal with government at several different levels, I just got really, really frustrated and concerned that the political system that our founding fathers envisioned looks very little like how government actually operates today, particularly with the amount of partisanship, which the founders warned us about. George Washington spent a lot of his farewell address telling the nation, don't become partisan. That way leads to horrible outcomes. But also the expansion of gerrymandering recently, especially politically based, detailed gerrymandering, where effectively the politicians are allowed to choose their own constituents. It breaks the political system. It prevents it from working properly in terms of providing a government that is actually representative of the population. Now, of course, I have very clear ideas about what I think government should look like, the policies I think should be adopted, and those frequently will not match up with the policies that might be chosen by, a representative democracy, a democracy that actually does reflect the wills and the interests of the people. But my job is not to force other people to conform to my policy preferences. My job is to persuade. And so if a representative government is not choosing the policies that I think would be ideal, that means I'm not doing my job in terms of persuading. It doesn't mean we should rig the political game so that one party or another gets to dominate the system. And so when I saw these problems, I started thinking, maybe I just need to opt out because, kind of as George Carlin suggested, if you participate in the system to an extent, you're complicit. You are indicating that, yes, you support the way this is working and its outcomes. Whereas by standing up and saying, you know what, this is not working properly. I can't participate in this. It highlights what I think are the problems with the way that our system is currently working and gives me an opportunity to voice ideas about alternatives that might be better and hopefully get those ideas taken a little bit more seriously, because I can say I believe this so firmly that I'm not going to participate in the system as it currently exists. I believe so firmly that the system is not working properly that I'm just going to opt out until I feel like we can fix some of these problems.
So it's not necessarily candidates and issues, it's the system, it's the way in which we vote as a whole?
Yeah, and it's not just the way that we vote. There are certain ways that our political system has kind of been rigged. And it's not just as simple as the everyday elections. The Missouri Constitution, when it was redrafted in 1943, built in a two-party system. It affirmatively enshrined the two major parties to the detriment of any third party or independent challengers. So, for example, although Missourians are asked every 20 years if we want to amend the Constitution or to call a new constitutional convention, it also spells out that whatever convention gets called is going to be dominated by the two major parties. Very little opportunity for independent thinkers or independent parties or third parties to have any sort of say in the process of redrawing a new state constitution.
I love
That's
that you
what I
say
call
that
rigging the game.
because as somebody who I say I'm independent, conservative independent, and I agree on this premise that, why do we have to have D's and R's behind the name? I can hear what you're about. I don't need to see a D or an R behind your name. You tell me what you're about. I can figure it out from there, and we see this with nonpartisan races here in mid-Missouri. Our guest, Dave Roland, he's a regular guest on the Gary Nolan Show, Think Tank Thursdays. He's from the Freedom Center of Missouri. He does incredible work there as it relates to cases that have to do with your personal freedom. He is conscientious objector. Is that too dramatic to explain? That you don't
that's
vote?
Actually, that's the term that I use frequently.
All right, and I appreciate that when Obamacare went into law, I was in Pensacola, Florida. I dropped my insurance. I dropped it, and I don't know if I was using too flowery of a term to say, look at me, I'm a conscientious objector, because I paid a $600 fine for 3 years and then penalties and fees, but I do not regret that for 1 minute. Because sometimes, it cost me several $1,000s, but I believed in it, Dave, and
absolutely,
you believe in what you're doing.
Yeah, I really do. There is one other factor, and it relates to the Freedom Center. So the Freedom Center is utterly nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, but frequently I would get people calling asking how they should vote on different candidates or different offices or different issues, and I would tell them, well, we can't advise you about how to vote. Like, that would violate our tax-exempt status to tell you how to vote. But also, I don't want to tell people how to vote. Yeah. And when I would say that, they would say, well, you tell me how you're going to vote, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that factored into my decision is I wanted to be able to tell them, honestly, I legitimately have no dog in this hunt. Like, I am not participating, so I can't tell you how I'm going to vote because I've chosen not to vote at all. You learn what you need to learn about the candidates and the issues, and you vote your conscience. Don't rely on other people to tell you what to do. And so I felt like that was pretty powerful as well. And we have run into situations where, because certain potential clients thought that we had a political angle, they said, well, no, we're actually not comfortable having you represent us because we're worried that you are secretly partisan. And so that was another reason I wanted to be able to say, look, I'll show you how nonpartisan we are. We're so nonpartisan, I'm not even registered to vote because I believe I have to be completely independent. Right. And when you get into a voting pattern, you start to identify with a particular political team, and then you almost, unconsciously, subconsciously start to think in terms of, what can I do to advance my team or my guy? And I didn't ever want to fall into that trap.
All right, our guest, Dave Roland, Freedom Center of Missouri, regular guest on the Gary Nolan Show. He's joining us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, Brian Hausworth, producer Hannah, John Marsh. I'm Branden Rathert.
Yeah, Dave, we appreciate you joining us. Just a quick question about, you mentioned how hard it is for an outsider, an independent, or another party to break into, let's say, the Congress or the legislature. The only independent that I remember covering and even being around that was elected to the Missouri House was in 1997 or 8 was State Representative Denny Meredith, I should say, from Caruthersville. He was an independent, Southeast Missouri, very conservative, probably a Republican today, but he caucused with the Democrats. He lasted maybe 2 terms. There hasn't been anybody before or since that I can recall. It would probably be almost impossible for someone to be elected to a Missouri House or Senate seat as an independent. I would think you would have a hard time raising, not you, but people would have a hard time raising the money. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's absolutely true. Every once in a while, people ask me about running for office. I don't have any interest in doing that. But one of the things that I say is, number one, I would never align myself with a party. If I was going to run, I would demand to be independent. And yes, that absolutely compromises any efforts at fundraising. It makes it very difficult for you to find kind of a home in the legislature. And I think it's the way that the laws are currently written, it is virtually impossible for an independent just to get on the ballot, much less get elected. And again, I think that that's part of the problem.
All right, Dave Roland, before we let you go, I got about 1 minute here. Do you get criticized from people in your professional and social circles for not voting?
All the time. Whenever I bring it up when I'm a guest on Gary's show, people call in and they complain about it. And the thing is I want to make clear, I do not wish to discourage other people from voting. I do think voting is very important. For all of its flaws, I think that there are still powerful goods associated with our system. But what I'm trying to do is help people understand that the system itself is not perfect and that there are important reforms that we can adopt that I think would bring us closer to the ideal that the founders had in the first place. And so my goal is not to discourage other people from voting, but simply to help them think through our voting system and perhaps be open to some changes that would improve it, that would bring it more closely in line with the founders' original vision.
Next election day, we'll have to get you back on the show to talk about what you would do to change the system to make it to where you would be comfortable voting. Fascinating. Dave Roland, Freedom Center of Missouri, mofreedom.org, regular on Think Tank Thursdays with Nolan. Man, I appreciate you'd come on the show and talk about this, Dave.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Coming up 5 minutes from now, Morning Bell. Yesterday, Dow was up 327. Going to be anxious to hear how it's opening up this morning. What do you have for us, Steph?
The Journal is telling us the right number of cards, amount of cash, and what IDs to carry in your wallet.
What Good morning, 8:26, time for the Morning Bell Business News. Little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Futures are looking up as the market is set to open here shortly. We have an update from we try to give you helpful tips here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and they say here is the right amount of cards, cash, and ID to carry in your wallet, which I feel like the people in my life are like, Stephanie, you need this advice because usually I have $0.
And Stephanie comes here like she needs to come through TSA before Stephanie comes into the studios, everyone, because that's how many purses she has.
But I literally have no cash typically. And now the Journal's reporting that 4 in 10 Americans say that none of their transactions every week are in cash. And so what's the right amount to carry? And they're saying typically people have about $61 in average in their wallet, which I would think is kind of high. Some of you are walking around with a fat wallet and driving that average up. I currently have $0.
Ooh,
I think I have $1 plus a lot of coins.
I actually have $39, John. Whoa.
I'm at $0. So we're
I've got a 20.
Okay, we're dragging down the average. So they're saying $67 is the average, but according to the experts, you need about $30 to cover just small expenses. And I will say I was flying, and I ended up in a place that I was not supposed to end up, in a random city in a hotel late at night. And they were actually in a city that they didn't have Ubers, so I ended up in a yellow taxi. And I ended up bless this poor Marriott front desk worker who loaned me a $20 to pay off the scary cabbie to leave because the cabbie's card swiper wouldn't work and they didn't have an ATM in this Marriott in this city that I wasn't supposed to be in. And then I had to walk a block to find an ATM to pay back the Marriott guy. So keep some cash in your wallet is the moral of the story.
You never know when Lemony Snicket's whole series of unfortunate events will hit you like they did Stephanie Bell.
I still am thankful for that Marriott front desk worker at 2 a.m. But then they said also, because, your wallet can get stolen, also don't walk around with every credit card ever that you've ever had in your life. So 3 cards is what they recommend, 1 being a debit card. I think I have more than that, but I have business credit cards and I have other things. But
you're going to get mad about this, I think, Steph.
You don't even have a credit card, do you?
Yeah, I got a credit card. I got one. I got a credit card.
Do you have your do you have your Social Security card? You have all these pieces of paper. What is that?
Please no.
Oh my God, you have
Show the camera.
It looks like somebody chewed up your. You're not supposed to. Why would you have that in your wallet? Do you not have it memorized? Don't show it on camera.
No, I have it memorized.
Don't show your number on camera,
please.
I just thought that's where it goes.
No.
Otherwise, they would not have made it wallet size.
No, and you're going to need a new one because, the other thing that I thought was really weird is they said, I guess 8 states now are letting you upload your driver's license into your Apple ID wallet and use your digital ID. I'm thinking, how does that work for fakes? Like, you can just download your... I mean, seriously, how do you tell a fake ID if it's just in your Apple wallet?
You don't have to... Artificial intelligence will make...
How does that work? I honestly don't know. I'll have to research that.
All right, coming up, listener mailbag. All kinds of topics from voting to intentionally not voting.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know
in flattering lighting and full bright color. Their candidate is in grainy high contrast black and white, spotted through a telephoto lens from behind a bush, coming back from God only knows where. Our guy points at the horizon and holds a baby. Their guy doesn't have a baby. Their guy has a golf club. The voiceover for our guy is calm, measured, bright. Their guy gets the lower register, and sometimes we slow down. Our guy has clean headlines and the beautiful lens flare America needs. Here's a scary graph over a photo of their guy awkwardly laughing. Snap zoom. Do you want a snap zoom like that in office? Here's a photo of our guy saluting military veterans. Jump cuts, flashes, static, aggressive colors. You can't trust a guy with graphics like this. Our guy gets stock footage of sunrises and an American flag. Their guy's flag is upside down and on fire, intercut with overdue bills, war, and a crying baby. Our guy gets doctors and astronauts and stimulus checks. Flatline, an eagle, hurricane, the Statue of Liberty, crime scene tape, Ronald Reagan, a girl running in a wheat field to escape a dangerous sexual predator, welding, atomic bomb. This election, the choice is yours. Their guy or our guy. Inspiring slogan.
Who's your guy today? Ron Fitzwater, mayor in Jefferson City. That's who I'm voting for. I would vote for. Welcome into the show to Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert. Stephanie Bell is here.
Good morning.
There's Mr. Brian Houseworth.
It's good to see you on Election Day.
Yeah, it's, by the way, weather today spectacular. Early part of the day. Check this out. We're going to be up to 86 degrees tomorrow. So we're going to get to, we could kiss 90 in some spots. Tomorrow, we'll be lucky if we hit 50, a 40-degree swing. And you know why? Because it's Missouri and it's March, and that's just what happens here. But we're expecting some storms today, and the only reason we really bring it up because of what happened on Friday night with that hailstorm that hit parts of mid-Missouri. I did my insurance claim yesterday. Yep. So we mentioned that because of what we had happen on Friday and because folks going to be, I don't know, after work going out to vote.
Yes, there's no doubt. And Breonna Lennon's advice for people, Branden, is a good, if people can somehow get to the polls, I'd say before 2 o'clock, but certainly before noon, you're going to be okay. And you'll probably be okay in the afternoon, but we've got two potential problems today. One is a conditional threat between 2 and 6, and the atmosphere is hot right now. It's if these storms develop this afternoon, Columbia, Jeff City could receive very large hail. That's directly from the Weather Service. I talked to Jason Goslin, and strong tornadoes. Then we've got the straight line winds that will be coming in overnight. Still unsure on the time frame on that. Sometime between 11 and 1, fast moving, maybe an hour, hour and a half through. They could bring tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds as well. The problem there is people are going to be asleep, and make sure before you go to bed tonight that you have a way to receive warnings. And hopefully this passes, but it looks like a statewide system right now.
And I think the thing that worries me there about Election Day, I always worry about power outages, right? I mean, that's, a lot of these buildings are secured by power locks. The machine, it just creates a lot of issues. So I would say if you're out trying to vote and there's a power outage in your area, don't panic. The clerks, they have things in place if that happens. Certainly their office will be overwhelmed with calls, but also don't just give up and not vote.
That's right.
So make a phone call to your clerk's office. I'm sure you can still visit the polling place. They will have procedures in place. But yeah, don't panic and don't give up on voting.
That's right. And I think the biggest thing that you said, don't give up. There's a number of people can call, and I've given that out on the air a couple of times this morning, because that's that gentleman that was driving around this morning. I'm glad he called. He could have given up, and hopefully he did not. That had a polling place he said nobody was at. So that is the potential right now. But again, if you are going to vote, certainly, and again, just advice, it's going to be easier for you not to have to go out in a storm to do it before noon, if at all possible, certainly by 1.
And if things get, regardless of what's going to happen, Randy Tobler's here today, 4 to 6. But the cool thing about Tobler doing the show from here, a local talk show, is if weather goes sideways, he's going to be on it. There's John Marsh.
Good morning.
We got a Facebook message says, I went to vote for school board race in Jefferson City. The ballot says the same thing there as it does in Sturgeon, as it does in Boone County. And this catches the people's attention School board races, for example, you've got, 6, 7 candidates running for 3 slots. Ballot language says vote for 3. And John says same thing, Cole County, right? Vote for 3.
That's what it says vote for 3.
Vote for 3, Boone County. Vote for 3, Jefferson City. Sturgeon, vote for 3. You do not.
Correct.
You do not have to vote for 3. And the argument for only voting for 2, for example, and I'll use the Columbia Public School Board race. 2 votes, 2 people I would vote for, John Potter, Chuck Basie. And the reason not voting for a third, let's say I vote for that third person, which would be April Farrell, by the way. I've been to a couple of these candidate forums, and I like her because she's on to the PR person for the Columbia Public School District. She's on, and she's been in the schools, incidentally.
She has.
So
yes.
that's what really struck me is she knows there's a big problem with, and it may not even be the top of leadership there. It might be the jaws, the mouthpiece for the Columbia Public School District. April Farrell, is not a fan. But anyhow, you vote for 2. That way, those 2 could potentially have a greater chance because you're not diluting the vote by voting for a third person that if enough other people voted for that person. But we are seeing that all over the place. There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
My name is Branden Rathert. If there is something we can do for you, 874-9390, 874-9390. We might get into the mailbag because we have a wide array of topics to cover in the mailbag.
We've gotten some doozies this morning.
We got some good ones, but first, let's talk to Richard. Richard is in Moberly this morning. Richard, what can we do for you, bud?
I just wanted to let you know that, like you, I'm still packing around my original Social Security card.
How does yours look?
It looks like it's been run through the washing machine a few times.
Let me ask you this, Richard. How long has your Social Security card been in your wallet?
Since my mother told me to sign it in, like, the Reagan era and keep it in my wallet.
Wow.
Listen to my mother.
Mine would be, would be from the W era, from the George W. Era. That's how long mine's been in my wallet. Does anybody ever tell you need to get it out of there?
No, this show was the first time I've ever heard that.
Because I've heard that over the years, too, that that's where I was told to put it.
What if someone steals your wallet?
Well, it's right next to my Pizza Hut buffet card with 10 punches that I got my 10th one in March 2020 before COVID shut down.
Richard, we love you for listening. We appreciate you even more for taking time out of your day to call and be a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
And
All right.
the Journal didn't talk about this, but I have had questions lately because you know what else is in my wallet? My vaccine card. Because remember when because the Social Security card, they told you don't laminate it. And with the vaccine card, they're like, don't laminate it because you're going to have to write all these boosters on it. I don't ever plan on getting another booster. But then again, I'm like, oh, what do I do with this thing? Is it important? Because at first they were like, it's really important. You have to have it with you at all times. Somebody might make you show it. I've never had to show that thing ever.
Remember, it was a weird size, too. It didn't fit in any kind of regular wallet.
So what do we do with that thing? Can I throw it away now? Or do I have to take a picture of it? Can I put it in my Apple wallet with my driver's license, my picture of my driver's license, which is crazy.
Stephanie, surely you have a pocket in one of your mini purses that would fit your vaccine card. Come on.
I do have a lot of bags.
You may need it to get on an international flight. You never know.
You don't, though. I don't think. But I did keep it for a while because the international rules were different than ours. So it freaked me out to be traveling and not have it. But now I think everywhere is just as cool as us.
Here's what I've wanted to do is like one of the I think it's Boone Hospital. I didn't know this was still a thing. There's still some places that have mask mandates.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, my God.
I was just in a doctor's office last week where I had to wear a mask.
And I was like, huh? They're like, ma'am, mask. And I was like, wait, what?
Well, here's what I wanted to do when I went to another hospital. This is when they were hyping the vaccines and stuff, and they wanted me to wear a mask. I wanted to pull out, oh, no, y'all said I got the vaccine and I'm golden.
Yeah.
So I don't need to wear a mask. I've got I'm vaccinated. Well, but you still need to wear a mask. The vaccines are going to be like parachute pants and all that. People are going to go, yeah, that was kind of a dumb idea. That didn't work out. They lied to us, and yeah.
Well, I used to carry around a mask in my car. I'd hang it from the rear view mirror just so I had one. But I've gotten to where I don't even carry one with me anymore. So I do get caught off guard every once in a while when a business still requires masks and I have to ask them for one.
If I go to a place and they say mask required, I'm like, I want to put my hands over my mouth and say, will this work? Because it's about just as effective as the cloth mask is.
Last time you wore a mask, you wore it to a masquerade party up over your eyes, right?
All right. Coming up, so we got the Gary Nolan show is coming up at 9 o'clock, but we still have a lot of show to get to. We have leftover
letters.
The mailbag.
I get letters.
We don't get any letter.
So many letters.
Text at 874.
A whole bunch of letters.
9390.
I'd even read mail from a cow.
And Facebook messages 874-9390. 874-9390. Morning Bell. We do it every morning, 8:25. Interesting story, Wall Street Journal. Kind of like what's normal. How much money should you have in your wallet? How many credit cards? All that kind of stuff. A couple of interesting texts. So we also have another text. My original. So I learned my Social Security card's still in my wallet. And I have $39. And I have 2 credit cards and a debit card. And my old Southeast Missouri State college ID.
Seriously.
And I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah,
Did you even graduate from there?
Ouch.
Man.
Shots fired.
I graduated from the 2-month program.
That's right.
And I'm sporting a sweet. I can show this to the camera. There's nothing on there. If you can zoom in on that, you see that sweet
mullet.
That sweet mullet. If you're watching, by the way,
I would call that a lot of things. Sweet is maybe not the word I would choose.
This is pre-BRC.
Man, it looks like a serial killer.
He kind of does.
This is pre-Billy Ray Cyrus, baby.
Oh.
Is that your I was doing it before it was cool statement?
That's my I was doing it before it was cool statement.
Brandon's achy, breaky heart picture.
Shannon.
Man. My husband is a firm believer that if you don't have at least, because it said the minimum, you should always carry at least a $20 bill.
$30 is what they said.
You should always carry a $30 bill in your wallet. My husband is a firm believer that if you don't have at least $100 at all times with you, you're not prepared. He also used to carry a fake wallet with like $10 in it in case he got robbed.
That's smart.
That's pretty smart.
I think, my dad's really into like the $100, like be prepared. He was always like, when I was in high school, like handed me cash before I left or whatever. And I think that should probably be the rule, but I don't follow it. I'm bad about it.
Just voted. Now switching topics here in the mailbag. Just voted at Hanover Village. 8 poll workers waiting to help everyone. I was the only person there. School district in Hallsville says vote for 3 school board members on my sample ballot. We're getting a lot of that this morning. Jim wants to know, can Trump, by the way, there's nothing. He goes, how come you're not talking about Trump? Has anything new happened between yesterday and his 1:30 appearance, our time court appearance?
Nothing.
All right, nothing new. Nothing that's going to get in your way today. 874-9390. 874-9390. Coming up, we are going to be doing some leftovers. We still have some really good stuff, maybe even a couple of more emails in the listener mailbag. And then it's my dad's favorite show, the Gary Nolan Show.
Full serving of leftovers. Enjoy.
Leftovers, some things we didn't get a chance to get to in the show, but still some really, really good stuff. We like to do it before we get into the Gary Nolan show. Also, quick off the leftovers, talking about things. Great story this morning in the Morning Bell. Something Steph does every morning, 8:25, some financial news, but it's not. And the numbers this morning, Dow is up 3.5. It's not like that. It's kind of like fun stuff. This story from the Wall Street Journal, things you should have in your wallet, $30, X number of credit cards, and all that. So we've been getting text about that, 874-9390, 874-9390. I still have Social Security card, college ID from Southeast Missouri State University circa 1988 or 89. A long time ago. Sporting a mullet. Pre-BRC, pre-Billy Ray Cyrus. One of our listeners says, hey, you gotta check out this. I did not know there was a song for Billy Ray Cyrus called I Want My Mullet Back.
I want my mullet back.
You didn't know that this song existed?
No.
I did.
Yeah. Nope. Never heard of it. I want my mullet back. Thank you for the heads up on that. Even John Marsh giggling a little bit there. What do you got for leftovers, John?
Well, it looks like the Missouri State Penitentiary redevelopment project in Jefferson City is back to square one because the council last night voted to dump the lead developer, the Chesterfield Group, from that. So they were planning to build a hotel and a convention center and some associate properties there, but now they're looking for a new developer / lead contractor.
Is it because they're going, hey, we have this property. This is gold right now. Let's see if we can get some higher bidders. I'm just asking out loud. I don't know if that's the case.
I don't know. You know, it's Dave Parmalee from the Broadway in Columbia. At least it was. He was a big guy with Chesterfield Hotels and all. So I don't know where that's all at. They did say that Chesterfield could reapply to be the developer.
Did you hear what was the holdup last night? Columbia City Council meeting, voting on the Columbia Sports Fieldhouse roller derby on the floor. He says, hey, we want to do roller derby there. And they said, well, you can't roller derby on this type of floor. And apparently, we had some, it's been several years, we had some gals from the roller derby team come in here. Fascinating.
We had one of them who worked here for a while.
Really?
Yeah, she was one of our weekend crew.
Man, and they were badass. Like, you don't want to piss them on them roller derby girls will kick.
Yeah, man, you didn't call them if they had dead air. You just let go.
What do you have, Steph, for leftovers?
Some child care tax credits coming back to life. We heard a couple weeks ago when the House budget chair proposed his budget that he kind of zeroed out some of the child care stuff that the governor had proposed in his budget. And I raised some concerns because obviously child care matters in my life for sure. And people had thought that was kind of odd given that the governor had laid that out as a significant priority. But this is not in the budget bills. It's in a separate piece of legislation. The House passed House Bill 870, if you're interested, yesterday, and it has 4 separate tax credits all related to childcare. So maybe they're not doing it in the budget. Maybe they're doing it a different way. I'm going to take a look at this.